So I have my reference ready. I've got all my supplies in easy reach. Let's start drawing. Feel free to use the reference that I'm using here, or use a photo of a friend, family member, or a favorite movie character, whatever photo you want. So to start off with our drawing, we're going to put in some basic shapes to block in the shape of the face. We'll use a round circle for the base of the skull, and then we'll add some simple marks to block in the jawline. Make sure to draw lightly so it's easy to erase. These marks are just for basic landmarks for you to use as you draw to find out if you need to make shapes bigger or change the angle of the shapes. We're also going to block in for the eyes, basic shapes for the eyes. And this is kind of similar to the skull, the eye sockets for a skull. And they're about in the middle of the face that we've drawn here. We'll also make a mark right here for the nose, in the upper part of the nose, and then also for the lips. And I'm not adding too many details here because we're going to be moving these lines around quite a lot. So one thing with the nose that we're going to start off with right here is we're going to block in a super basic shape for the nose so that we can find out where it sits on our page. You'll see that the nose is in the middle of the head. So you have one length of the nose above, and you also have one length of the nose below. For the eyes, we can put in landmarks for the eyes, and you'll find that the eyes are about one eye length apart from each other, allowing one eye in the middle. So now that we have some of our basic landmark shapes here, we can start cleaning up some of the lines. I'm using a kneaded eraser, and what you can do is you can just pull off some of those extra lines that we have on the face. Since we don't need this part of the form, we can get rid of it and clean that up. We can clean it up with a kneaded eraser. I'm using the drafting pencil with the 2H lead. This lead is really helpful because it creates a light mark that's easy to erase with the kneaded eraser, and it's easy to go on top of over the harder lines. All right, so let's develop some of the eye shape a little more. And what we're doing here is we're going to block in really basic form to get the placement correct of the features of the face. So I've just drawn the upper part of the eye, the iris. We'll also block in where the eyebrows are. One trick I like to use to make sure that the angle is right for my eyes, the curve that you're using on the one eye is going to be the same on the other. So we just want to get that right. We also don't want to make them cross-eyed. And remember, these are very basic marks that you're using in the beginning of the drawing process to mark everything on the paper. Nothing's going to be perfect right now. We're also going to make a little hint here for the nostril flares and the bottom of the nose. And then we'll block in the lips. We'll start with the corner of the lips. And here. And if you look at the reference, you'll see that the lip starts about at the middle of the eyeball there. So we want to move that down a little bit. It's really helpful to find the landmarks of your face on your reference in order to make sure everything's right. We start off with these basic landmarks and strokes so that you can compare it to the reference, erase and move it, and also change the size. This is also helpful as you develop, as you might know the basic foundations of a portrait, but every face is different, so you have to make sure you keep an active eye. I'll just make a little mark there for the chin. All right, so we have the basic shape blocked in here. Let's clean up some of the marks that we have. We'll clean up some of these extra marks here. And then we'll go back and we'll look at our drawing to see what marks we need to fix. So we've done a pass over all of the main features of the face, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and the eyebrows. Let's do another pass over the shape of the face, and let's try to get the angles here correct. So it looks like the cheek comes out a little bit more here. And then we'll do the same over here. Pull out that cheek just a little bit. And then we're going to round this off. I was using very straight lines at the beginning of the drawing, because if you put a mark in the wrong spot or it's the wrong size, a straight mark is really easy to fix. And you also haven't invested to make it a perfect curve. So we'll clean up the curves here. And remember, it's not about making the perfect portrait in 5 minutes. It's about having fun with the process. And don't forget to breathe. Okay, so let's develop this smile a little bit. We'll make the smile a little bigger here. After looking at the reference, the smile is just a little bit more intense. And we've also have, if you'll notice, my eyes aren't the right size. So what we can do is we can find out where the tops of the eyes are and the bottom. The bottom part of my right eye is a little lower, but I actually think it's more correct than this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over and make the left eye a little bigger. And this is the best part about drawing, is it's a process where you make marks, you see what works, and you take away what doesn't. The kneaded eraser is really nice for pulling off the lighter marks, but since I've gone in here and made some of the darker marks, I'll need to use the rubber eraser, which will leave some of the flakes, the residue. Okay, so I think that's right. And then we'll get the top of the eye shape correct. There we go. Okay, so we've got some of the basic shapes here, some of the basic features. That was another pass over the features. Let's start blocking in some of the major shapes here to make sure that we've got everything placed correctly. So let's get under the eyes. We'll develop how the nose goes into the eyebrows. Thin this a little bit because the nose is a little wider on my drawing than the reference. And we'll make the little bulb at the end of the nose here. And we'll fix the flare of the nostrils. It's very important to not go right into shading, because if you go into shading, you're committing to what you've drawn already. And like I said, drawing is a process. You'll find shapes that aren't correct or the wrong size, and you just want to make sure you have a great foundation before you start building shading and details on top of it. And again, let's pull off some of those extra lines. So we have this line left over from figuring out the shape of the nose. We can pull that off. And let's just block in a little bit of the hair right here, just to get the general shape and clean up some of those gestures from the skull. And we'll block in the rest of the drawing too. Now you can add as much detail as you want here. You don't have to go super intense on the details. This is about the gesture, so just make sure you block in the general shapes if you want to include them. I'm not going to focus on too many details in the hair, but it is good to get a general shape. Part of the likeness is getting the shapes of the face right, but it's also about getting some of the key features. Hair can be a pretty defining feature in portraits. All right, and we'll go ahead and clean up some of these extra lines that have developed here. Okay, so I still haven't committed to the shape of the face yet because there are still some things that we want to develop a little bit more. I'll do one more pass over the general shape, the jawline, the chin, and the cheeks here. And if you were to look at a time lapse of this, what we're doing is we're building a very simple shape. And it's going to serve as the foundation for the portrait. And then sculpting out some of the details. We're taking that basic straight lines that we started at the beginning with and adding more and more details to them, giving them more facets. It's kind of like increasing the resolution of the piece as you develop it. Like a low resolution model for a video game or a movie, we're starting off with very few polygons, very few details, and adding more. Let's fix the lips here. She still doesn't have the smile that I want on her, so we're gonna make her smile a little bit more. Okay, so we have the basics here, so let's start going into some more of the details. One of the best things to start developing is the nose. Let's work on the shadow of the nose a little bit here. The darkest parts of the face are going to be right under the nose, between the lips, and under the eyes. So we're going to work on those first. Since these protrude outwards, they cast a shadow underneath. We'll get between the lips. And I've switched over to the HB pencil, and I'm using a mechanical pencil because I love mechanical pencils. As I made this, I noticed that it's a little too straight, so we'll curve that out a little bit more. And since I've switched to that HB pencil, it's going to be harder to erase with the Kneaded Eraser. Alright, so let's work on the eyes here. So we'll get that curvature of the eye right and go over our sketch. We'll do a pass over both of the eyes so that we keep the same level of details. One of the worst things that happens is you draw a perfect left or right eye, and then you go over to the next one, you realize it's in the wrong spot. So we'll do both of them at the same time. And then this one, it's a little bit of a sharper angle here. Alright, and this is about where my 15-minute timer went off. It really helps you understand how far you can get in a set amount of time, which is great because we were able to get in the shadow above the eyes, under the nose, and the lips. This is the perfect start for a gesture drawing to build the foundation for the outline, shading, and then the details to finish a portrait off, which I'll be going into in later videos. Thank you so much for drawing along, and I hope you share your portrait with me. I'd love to give you feedback, inspiration, and motivation to continue. I really love giving the feedback sandwich where it's about positivity, it's about constructive criticism, and then it's about giving you ideas to motivate you further. So I hope you share your project with me, Moss, and thank you so much for drawing along, and happy creating.